Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave for the land of the free and the home of the brave? USA! 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 USA!
Hey, USA. Woohoo, yeah. So I played that because that was in honor of the J6 defendants and the song for freedom that everybody sings at 9 p.m. Eastern because that's when the prisoners are singing. Anyway, I stole that from Patriot AU. You could see Carly in there. Patriot AU. They're awesome. Welcome, friends.
Welcome.
How are
Sorry,
you tonight?
I'm muting because the mower is going outside.
Oh, no problem. No problem. Anyway, how are you tonight, Moxie?
I'm wonderful. How are you doing?
I'm wonderful. Let's see who we've got in chat. We've got Moxie, Boats in a River. I don't know who that is.
That's Craig.
Oh, that's Craig. Oh, yes, I should know that. We've got Rocker Lady, Herbie, and we've got Magnolia and Patriot Cat. Hey, Patriot Cat. And that's it for now. I don't know who's on YouTube because it looks like we've got 4 on YouTube.
Oh.
4.
Hey,
Not sure
that's a
who's
big
on
group for us on YouTube.
What's that?
That's a big group for us on YouTube.
That is a big group for us on YouTube. I want to pull up our agenda and then we'll introduce our special guest. Sound good?
Absolutely.
All right. So we've got an agenda tonight, folks, and we are going to be meeting with Danean. We'll be introducing her. She's going to talk about why she went to prison. We are going to go through her prison experience. And she went to FCI Dublin. So we are going to talk about the history of FCI Dublin because there's a lot of controversy going on there. And then we're going to talk about the prison being closed and what's next for Danean. So Danean is our friend. She's our online friend. We love her very much. She's a patriot, beautiful lady. And I guess I'll just let her introduce herself more and talk about herself and why she went to prison. Should we get started? All right. Welcome, Danean.
Hey, thank you. Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you great.
Okay, I forgot to ask you how long we go.
Whatever you need. Trust me, I will move us to the next agenda item. If we go too long, I'm assuming your prison experience will probably take a good chunk of our time, which is fine. But why don't you introduce yourself and tell folks why you went to prison?
Okay, so my name's Danean MacAndrew. I'm 56. I live in Southern California. I went to January 6th by myself, and I went into the building and I got arrested and I turned down the plea deal. I went to a bench trial in January of 2023. I was found guilty on all 4 nonviolent misdemeanors, and I was sentenced to 90 days in prison, 3 months in prison on August 8th, 2023, and on October 17th of 2023, I reported to FCI Dublin. I was able to self-report.
You know,
And Dublin is about probably 6 hours from me, north of me.
oh, at least it was in the same state where you lived. But a real quick question: how can they sentence someone to prison time for misdemeanors?
Well, from what I understood from staff and inmates, I was told that I was the only person they had ever seen in prison for misdemeanors that weren't like, somebody was out on probation and had a violation with a misdemeanor, but somebody with no criminal background. Like, I don't have a criminal background. They had never seen somebody in my circumstance be in prison before.
Wow.
It actually caused a little bit of trouble. Originally, with some of the inmates, there was a rumor that went around about me that I was a plant. There's a show called 60 Days In, where they put people in prison in order to gather info on inmates and guards. And there was a rumor that went around, but it only lasted, I think, a couple days.
You know, I'm not really surprised, because if you think about it, they've never seen anybody that goes into prison based off of misdemeanors. So that's kind of sus, right?
Yeah.
So,
So the lady who told me about it, she was an inmate. She's like, "Hey, I got to give you a heads up on this. There's this rumor going around." And I'm like, "Well, what's it based on?" And they're like, "Because misdemeanor defendants don't come here." And I'm like, "Okay, but here I am." And she said, "And your crime was in DC, but you're in California." I said, "Well, I live in California." And
right.
she said, and you just like, you go around making notes all the time in your journal. You're always writing in your journal or reading your Bible, and you just kind of stick to yourself. And I'm like, "Well, okay." Like, don't know what to say about that. She's like, "And you're on the computer a lot." I'm like, "Well, yeah, I'm doing like legal research."
Well, you know, since you're talking about that, let's just talk about your prison experience then.
Yeah, well, and one more thing. And she said, "You say you've never been incarcerated before, but when you got here, I taught you how to tie a bed sheet and told you how to get along with people. And then we went to dinner and you never freaked out. And people always freak out when they get here, especially their
Really?
first time in. They're totally panicked. They're looking over their shoulder. They're self-isolating. They're nervous as all get out. They cry. And you did none of those things." And I said, "Well, I think that's an answer to the prayers of the people who are praying for me." And she's like, "You asked me." And that's the reason that people think that you're not legit prisoner,
Totally. I mean, I would be suspicious of you too.
I would be suspicious of me too, actually.
Wow. How were you feeling before you went into prison? Like, did you have that, were you concerned? Were you worried? I mean, obviously you were, but what were your thoughts going in?
It was a really, really mixed bag. So when I went in, I had called a few days earlier to ask what I could expect and to see if I could find out if I were. So the prison is actually two different levels of security. So there's a minimum security satellite camp where the least egregious offenders are typically sentenced. And then there's the FCI Dublin. They just call it FCI Dublin, and that's a low security, so a higher security than the camp. So I called to see, because my mailing address would be different. So I called to see if he could tell me which side I was going to be sent to. And he said, he asked what, my criminal history, if I had violence in my crimes. And I said, no, misdemeanors. He's like, oh, yeah, you're going to the camp. Well, so I didn't really know what to expect. And so I'd say that like that gave me a little bit of anxiety. And then, just leaving my life for 3 months and, like having my family cry and, things like that. It was hard,
Yeah.
but I felt really supported, not just online, but like a lot of people in my life who I didn't think would support me were extremely supportive, which was a huge morale boost. But on the other hand, I lost friends who have been friends for decades, so it was a very mixed emotion, I'd say, going in.
I don't think you need to have been a J6er and go to prison to have lost lifetime friends.
I agree. Right.
So many, but I'm so sorry, you went through that.
Well, I mean, it's a way to thin the herd, right?
Mm-hmm. You find out who your real friends are.
Yes, you do.
Moxie?
You find out who your real friends are.
Oh, that's so true.
Yep.
So true. So tell us about your experience in there. We want to hear all about it.
So when I got there, I was checking in with another self-surrender lady, and like you're not supposed to ask people like why they're there. It's super inappropriate. And so you just wait and see if they'll open up about it. And she did, and she said that she was part of a RICO case for smuggling drugs and guns across the border and stuff, and I'm like, oh, she had been in a lot of different facilities, prison and county jails and stuff like that. So they bring us in, they put us through the metal detectors, and then the guy said, okay, to the other lady, you're going to the camp, and MacAndrew, you're going to FCI. And I'm like, wait, I'm like, are you sure that's right? Because like this lady just told me what she was in for, and I'm in for misdemeanors, and I'm going to the higher security place. So it was, I just, after that happened, I'm like, this is going to be a wild ride. So anyway, there's the whole, like, when you get in, they strip search you, which is, highly unpleasant. They fit you sort of for prison clothes. They issue you your khakis. The clothes were actually really comfortable. So it's like granny panties and a sports bra, and khaki button down short sleeve shirt, and khaki elastic waistband pants, and some ill-fitting socks, and the boots that like Walmart would be ashamed to sell.
They had to, so you went in for a misdemeanor and you had to be strip searched?
I was strip searched when I got there, when I left there, and after my relative visited me for Christmas. So I had 3 strip searches. Yeah.
Wow. After a visitor too?
Oh yeah, because contraband can come in through visitors, so they always strip search everybody after a visitor. Yeah. So like people were like, "Do you want me to visit?" And I'm like, "Okay. Do I want to see this person badly enough to be strip searched for?" I'm like, "No, I'm good."
Wow.
So I had
Yeah.
several people offer to visit, but it's a big procedure to even be able to get a visitor. You have to like put in a request for the visitor, then you have to fill out the forms, mail the forms to them. They have to fill them out, send them back. Then the counselor, the unit counselor has to do a background check on them and then approve them. And
It's a
this all
whole
takes a very
process.
long time. So
Yeah.
I had requested like a month earlier for my friend to come, and the paperwork didn't get done, and she was visiting a friend like 20 miles away. So it was really frustrating, because she's my friend who went to trial with me and everything and drove me to prison. And yeah, it would have
Yeah.
been, I would have gotten strip searched to see her.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
know. I don't know if you want me to show it, but I did upload pictures of you and
Of
her.
my strip search?
No.
I'm just teasing.
No. Of you and your friend, in case you wanted me to show.
Oh yeah, let's not.
Okay.
maybe I'll post them in my chat or something.
Okay, that sounds good. So tell us about some of the great things that happened in prison. What are some of your good experiences, memories?
There are actually a lot of really good things about prison, and yes, it's prison, and yes, it's horrible. Like overall it's horrible, but even in the midst of the most horrible circumstances, there are always so many bright spots if you can look at them, look for them and acknowledge them. And I think the more you acknowledge them, the more morale boosting they are, and the more you notice them. So once you start noticing good things, you can keep noticing good things. And
I love
that's
that.
just, yeah, it's I think really helpful in life to think of life that way as well. So I wanted to first say like why I'm even speaking, because this is my first interview. I have never done an interview. And the reason I'm doing it is because when I was in there, so as soon as you go in, the inmates have people, that they communicate with who are not incarcerated, who run the new people, do internet searches and find out, if what they're saying they're in for is really what they're in for. And the story of why people are in gets around very quickly. And it did in my case, which, that's fine. I'm fine with that. And so anyway, it went around that I was in for J6 misdemeanors. And so one of my favorite things about prison was that I had expected that it would be racially self-segregating. I thought that there would be cliques based on race, and I did not see that at all, which was such a blessing. I was really concerned about that.
Wow,
And it wasn't like that.
That's encouraging.
Yeah, it was really good. So I guess that's not completely true. There was a group of Spanish speakers, and they self-segregated, but it was based on a language barrier, not based on racism. You know what I mean? So these are just my experiences. I mean, different inmates, different facilities might have different circumstances, but I'm just speaking from my own experience. So what I noticed, like the way that the little groups were formed, cliques, if you will, but not in a derogatory meaning of the word. People gathered typically with, so you'd have like tables in the common areas. And some of the tables would be like the women who had been there the longest, or they are sentenced to the most time. And a friend of mine in there explained that. She said it's really hard to get close to the short timers because then they leave and it hurts, So as a short timer, it's, I think, maybe a little bit more challenging to make deep relationships, deep bonds, but I was able to.
Yeah.
So anyway, so once I was there, people found out why I was there. The two tables with the women who are lifers, they had, you know, some people were there for murder. Some people doing life for, there was a lady doing life for kidnapping. Several people were in there for murder.
Wow.
And so those are the people who asked me over to the table. They wanted to hear my story. And so I told them my story, and they were like, that's horrible, you know,
Mhm.
and I said, well, I think what's horrible is the way you guys have been treated. Like you ladies have been raped and retaliated against and everything covered up. And one of the ladies goes, whoa, you know about that? And I'm like, yeah. And she goes, wait, what do you know? And so I briefly told her what I knew. And I said I did research before I came here, of course, because I wanted to know as much as I could to get the fear
Of
of the
course.
unknown out of me, you know? And she's like, this is amazing to hear, because we know that we've talked to reporters, but we don't have any access to what, like, we don't have a way to gauge what the public knows about what we're going through.
Oh,
And
so they
so,
didn't know that it was known. It was out
no,
there what was
no,
happening at the prison, which we'll get into those details later, but yeah.
right,
Wow.
yeah. So they have
I
no
bet they were
idea
so
that
relieved.
anybody on the outside even knew. And so I was talking to them, and they're like, well, when you get out, like, can you be our voice? Like, you're not in here very long. And I'm like, yeah, like, tell me your stories. Like, I'll do my best. I have a tiny social media following, but like, I have a little bit, and I'll do what I can. And so they were just so grateful, and like,
Yeah,
it's the least I can do is to support them by helping amplify their muted voices, you know.
absolutely.
Yeah,
So
so anyway, so
that's
that's
why you're willing to do the interview, because you want to.
right, right,
Okay.
yeah, that's why I'm speaking. That's why I've been speaking out online about it. So yeah, so I wanted to talk a little bit about how inmates help each other. So because I think one of the biggest problems, and I've been guilty of it before I was incarcerated, is that I just figured, like, you know, don't do the crime if you can't do the time, and you know, like, just very flippant, not well thought through ideas about the way that I saw inmates before I was one.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I just want to sort of humanize them. So just with giving a couple stories. So my first morning in there, I got there in the afternoon. Basically, like, went and had dinner, went to the library, and went to sleep. And
Mm-hmm.
so the next morning I got up, and like, I couldn't go to commissary. I had missed commissary by a couple hours, which means that I would have to wait a week to get anything, including coffee. And I drink a lot of coffee. Like, that's my thing. So the next
Me too.
morning, a lady came up to me. She was from my unit, and she's like, hey, do you drink coffee? And I said, yeah, I would if I could. And she's like, oh, you missed commissary. You want some coffee? You can pay me back next week. I'm like, oh my gosh, yes, thank you. So she went and got me a baggie of coffee that would last me for several days. It was amazing.
Wow.
Just like, I didn't even have to reach out. She just was like, you know, you don't have coffee. You might drink coffee. I have coffee, you
Oh,
know,
that's
and
so
just reached
sweet.
out like that. It was so amazing. And then a couple hours later, I was coming down downstairs in my unit, and somebody stopped me and gave me this big baggie full of supplies. It had a razor to, you know, shave my legs, which I didn't think there'd be any razors in there, but I was a little surprised with all the things that you could make into a weapon that were
Yeah,
available,
I'm
but
shocked
nobody
that they
did.
would give razors out. Yeah.
Right, yeah, yeah. No, there were razors. So they gave me a bag. It had razors, deodorant, shampoo, conditioner, and body wash. and
Hmm.
toothpaste and a better toothbrush. Because the one that BOP issues you when you get in is like shorter than my index finger. It's a
Like
very,
a baby toothbrush?
it is, it's like, I don't know. I don't have kids, but I assume you'd use it on like a teething baby or something.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Oh my
Anyway,
goodness.
so yeah, they gave me a bag of supplies because they knew what I would need, you know. And it turned out that there was like this group of ladies in my unit who, like, whenever you have spare money on your books or whatever, if you want to buy something for the people who are just coming in, you can just buy items from commissary and then, you know, give them to the ladies who dole them out like they did to me. So I was able to give back with that, which was really nice. Um,
That's amazing.
my first cellmate, as soon as I got in, she taught me how to tie my sheet because you have to tie a flat sheet into a fitted sheet. And
Mhm.
she gave me some clothing because you can wear what are called grays. So basically a gray sweatshirt, t-shirt, sweatpants, or shorts. They're all gray.
Mhm.
And so she gave me a set of grays, just her shorts and her shirt. And she gave me a cup and a pen and a Bible. And well, she gave me access to her Bible, and she gave me like 2/3 of a journal. She ripped out the pages she
Oh.
had used, and it was just so, like, so kind of her. And then she brought me to eat dinner with her and introduced me around, and she was just amazing. And I asked her like questions like how do I not get in trouble in here, like with the inmates or the guards? And she said, just show respect and you'll get respect. That's my only advice. And so I did, and that's what I experienced. So at all meals, like, we shared food. Like, you know, my friend would always give me her tomato off her burger, and I would always give her like my spinach that was nasty. But she liked it and I liked her tomatoes. So yeah, we would always share food and stuff. There
That's
was
good.
just a lot of mutual respect and support. And if somebody was having a hard day or had a hard phone call, you know, somebody would come up and talk to him, give him a hug, stuff like that. It was really good. So yeah, there were also lots of humanizing guards. I'd say the majority weren't. The majority would either not speak to you, like, for example, like, I'm very outgoing and I would always say good morning to whoever
Oh.
was, you know, on duty. And a lot of times they wouldn't even acknowledge me. And it's harder than I thought it would be to have somebody not look at you. Like, they look at your whole self, but not in the eyes. Like, there was
Ah.
so little eye contact between the guards and the inmates. It was very demoralizing. And I would often ask the inmates, like, if you could change one thing about this place, what would it be? And almost without variation, it was, I want to be seen.
Mm.
I want to be seen as a person,
Yeah.
not as my crime, but as a person.
Right.
So
Absolutely.
anyway, but there were several humanizing guards who would, like, joke with us, laugh with us. I made friends with one of the guards. I was going to bed. It was Halloween, and I was going to bed, and I noticed, like, nobody said Happy Halloween to him. So I went back downstairs and I said, Officer, and he said, yes. And I said, hey, Happy Halloween. Sorry you got stuck working. And he's like, thank you. Happy Halloween. And, like, ever since then, we got along so well, because I think the system doesn't only seek to break inmates, like,
Mhm.
it's designed to also break staff.
Oh, for sure. It absolutely is. Moxie, what were you going to say?
Nothing.
Oh.
I just pointed out. Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly that. Yeah.
Yeah, the new chaplain was a huge blessing. The former chaplain, we'll talk about him later, is serving a prison sentence for raping the inmates. So the new chaplain came in, and I was at his first sermon, and he came in, and he just had the sweetest spirit, and he started his sermon by saying, "I am so sorry for what you experienced in here with the last chaplain. I want you guys to know, you ladies to know, none of you deserve that. None of you earned it. You're not going to trust me. I understand you don't trust me. I don't blame you for not trusting me, but give me a chance and let me earn your trust."
Oh,
And it
that's
was just such a beautiful way to introduce himself to us. And it turned out later, I ended up getting a job at the chapel, and I worked under him. And we, like, of course, it was a professional relationship, but he was such a godsend. I would actually be able to have conversations with him about the Bible, about politics, about how to show your patriotism within biblical guidelines. Just really,
cool.
he's like, these are the things I've thought about for 30 years. You know, he's
Wow.
worked for BOP for 20 something years.
Wow.
And so we became friends. He's like, because I asked for a job, and anyway, like, I could talk for like 9 hours straight. So
Yeah, I know. We
but
probably
like
do
really
have
quick
to.
about him, he and I both, he's like, "How long have you been here?" And I said, "I got here October 17th. And he said, "What?" And I said, "I got here October 17th. And he said, "Guess what day I got here?" And I'm like, "October 17th? And he's like, "Yeah, do you see that as like a God wink? You know, that like we're supposed to, you know, like get along,
Definitely.
or like whatever, you know." And it was just really good. I had some really sweet fellowship with him, and he prayed with me. He showed me Bible verses when I needed a Bible verse. He encouraged me. It was really frustrating not to be able to give him a hug when I left, because I wanted to hug him because he's a neat guy. So I don't know. So
That's
anyway,
so cool.
another really good thing, just a couple others really quick. There were no cell phones in there, which was amazing. So I had no social media, no news. There were, it was really nice because usually, like, well, every day, every meal, we would have to go, well, like, walk down this path and then go into this, like, this big rectangular room, and we would do like an S line, like a serpentine line throughout that room. And that led to very close contact, and often, you
What do
know,
you mean you
people
had to do an S line? I don't understand that.
just to line up to go into the
Oh, okay.
cafeteria area. That's where we
Okay.
kind of staged while we waited. And so anyway, we would be in that line, and like, you know how, like, if you're in line, and like there's this awkward moment with a person in front of you or behind you or something, you just like automatically reach for your cell phone, like, okay, like, give me this out so I don't have to feel these feelings right now. And I think I've done it for years, just subconsciously, like, I want to get my brain out of this awkwardness and this awkward situation. Let me just grab my cell phone. And you couldn't grab a cell phone, so you just had to sit there in the midst of this horribly uncomfortable situation many times and just deal with it. And it was so good. It was so good. I
You like
loved it.
that? Yeah,
Loved
I
it.
guess that would be right. It
Yeah, I
really.
love that it pushed me.
Mm-hmm.
And there was no electronic noise. Like, once in like every couple weeks, maybe the officer's phone would ring in his office in our unit, but like, that's the only electronic noise there was. There were 6 TVs, but in order to watch TV, you had to purchase a radio and earphones. And I chose not to watch TV at all. Like, I decided before I went in, I'm going to use this time for good. I'm going to use it to think and read and write and pray and exercise.
Wow.
Like, those were my things. So not once did I watch TV, except like while I was waiting to go to work, I would stand under one of the TVs. They would have the other inmate would turn on the ticker or like the closed caption on the bottom so I could read along and get like 5 minutes of morning news or whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Wow.
that was good. Birthdays were celebrated. We would make each other cakes out of commissary items. There was a magazine in the chaplain's office that had different recipes, like how you could make cakes out of commissary items. They were so sickeningly sweet. But
You were in
whatever.
there. You were in there for Christmas.
I was in there for Halloween, Veterans Day, Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how did you celebrate the holidays?
Well, so I got there the 17th of October, so I had only been there a couple weeks, and there was a party for Halloween. They did like a makeup competition, hair and makeup competition. We all like all the units. So there are 6 units, A through F. Each one of them houses between 80, 70, and 100 inmates. And so we competed unit against unit for who would have the best hair and makeup and stuff like that. So it was super fun. There was dancing, there was music, there was like all sorts of props, and the inmates made like these phones they drew on cardboard and then cut out, and they pretended they were taking pictures of each other and selfies.
I'm picturing that, you know.
A lot of laughter, a lot of dancing, a lot of bonding, and a lot of fun. For Christmas, there was Christmas Eve, there was a talent show. So there were 3 women playing guitar. So they have like minimal music classes run by inmates in there. So there was one lady who played a flute. There was a lady who played piano. There were several singers. There was a poet. There was a rapper. There was an interpretive dancer. There was one of my favorite inmates was on the drums, and she was amazing. She did an amazing job. Lots of singers. It was a super fun party, and we had several of the inmates had like gotten things over the weeks at commissary, and we had to figure out like how do you wrap it a Christmas gift, right? So I would go through the magazines in the chapel and be like, oh, this has a cute Christmas picture, I'm gonna do that. But you don't have tape. So what you have to do for tape is you have to go print labels at the library, address labels, then cut up your address labels and use that as tape to wrap your inside the page of the magazine. So, you know, necessity is the mother of invention, right?
It is. And I know, you know, I think all those things are great. And I'm glad you got to experience a lot of that. But I know you had challenges too. And I think people need to hear about those challenges. So if we want to, go ahead, Moxie.
I have questions. We can't move on from the holidays yet.
Oh, okay. Go.
Did they feed you anything special on the holidays?
Oh, that's a good
question. My. Well, special. If I use that term loosely, I'd say yes. So Veterans Day, there was not a flag to be seen. Which was terrible because there were a lot of veterans who were in there. But Veterans Day was probably the best holiday meal because they gave us MREs. So,
oh, cool.
Like military meal ready to eat things, and that beat the crap out of all the prison food. You actually got like salty food. You got potato chips in there, and a cookie, and like a juice pack, and you know, they took the heating element out of it. So they gave you like, I got beef stew in mine, and I'm like, what are we gonna do? Eat like room temperature beef stew that's, you know, shelf stable? So, you know, whatever. I don't know. So special meals, yeah. I mean, we had chicken on Thanksgiving. We had, I think No, we had chicken on Christmas. We had turkey on Thanksgiving, but it was funky. Like all the food in there, like whatever. I mean, the grand scheme of thing, the food was not really an issue. I mean, it was an issue, but it's prison. Like, what do you expect?
Right.
You know,
But the water was.
the water was a huge problem. So they had a lot of plumbing problems back. I think my buddy told me it was right like at the tail end of their COVID lockdowns. And they had to hire an outside company to come in and dig up a bunch of the pipes. So anyway, I got there, and within a couple days, my stomach was sick, like probably TMI, but I had bad diarrhea for 55 days in there, and
For 55
it was
days.
55 out of 78 days. Yeah.
Oh my God.
So yeah, that was actually really a challenge, because when you don't feel well physically, it's hard to exercise. It's hard to be positive. It's like you feel mopey when you feel like crap, you know? So that was definitely an added challenge. And one of my last days in there, so the reason it only lasted 55 days is because I found a workaround for the water. So the people were actually a lieutenant is the one who told me that they were adding salt to the water. And she didn't say it was salt. She said, we add those. She cussed at me a lot. This was actually a very bad experience. I'm not even going to go into, because it's really bad. So anyway, she said, well, they add the pellets to your water. Isn't the water good enough for you? Blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, they're adding pellets. So I asked around, and they're like, yeah, they add the pellets. And I'm like, well, what are the pellets? You know, what's in the pellets? What's making me sick? I know it's the water, because it doesn't matter. You know, every day you're fed different food. So it's not the food, or it wouldn't be consistent. It's got to be the water. So anyway, I noticed that the ice machine in our unit was being fed from a different water source. So the pellets that they were using,
You're clever.
they're called Morton's 4-in-1 Clean and Protect. And what it is, it's water softener pellets, but it also has chemicals in them that help protect the pipes. So I look up online, like, is this safe for human consumption? And I looked at all the documentation on the way back end of the Morton's website, and it says may cause diarrhea. And I'm like, yeah, you think? So anyway, I know I have a garden, and my house has soft water, and I know that I can't water my outdoor plants with my indoor water, or it will kill them. And so I noticed that the hose outside is what they would water the outside plants with, right? And then I noticed the back side of the same wall had the water softener, and had the ice machine. So I thought, I wonder if the obviously non-salinated water is also being used for the ice machine. So I started just drinking melted ice, and my stomach cleared up within a couple days.
Wow. So you did some research there, girl. And
Well, I didn't even know what they were adding to the water. I just knew it made me
you
sick.
figured it out.
Yeah, I think it was a
followed the
godsend for
crumbs.
sure. Because
It's
I was
because she wasn't watching TV.
What?
It's because she wasn't watching TV. She was able to think.
True.
I had a lot of time to think through a lot of things. So anyway, so just really quickly, so I just want to go over some of the global issues there. So one, of course, was the water. Another one was the lack of programming classes, they're called. So based on President Trump's First Step Act, if you're a nonviolent inmate, and
Mhm.
you are taking classes and not getting written up for things, and you're basically a model prisoner, you get time off your sentence for that, right? So, but you have to be in these programming classes to qualify for earlier release. And so it was so bad. I signed up for classes. You have to like matriculate in. So you take these tests within the first couple days. They're offered to you. They show up on your computer system and you take those, and then it tells you what classes you qualify for.
Mm.
So I did my testing right away. It said I qualified for, several classes, and I tried to get into the classes and they just weren't offered. So the whole time I was there, I was trying to get into any class I could take. I finally got into one class, which was a resume writing class that was taught by one of my favorite people in the universe. She's in there doing life. And she was teaching the class, and she's such a brilliant teacher and just such a bright spot in that place. She's an amazing woman. I adore her. Anyway, so she let me into her class, even though I wasn't signed up properly or something. So it was a 4-week class. We were going to meet every Tuesday night. And out of those 4 weeks, 2 of the classes were canceled. Because they didn't have staff to be in the building to oversee us. So out of 78 days, I had 2 hours of programming of classes out of 78 days. And so
Oh.
what that leads to,
What are you supposed to
but
get? Wait,
I
what are
was
you supposed
supposed
to
to
get?
be, I was supposed to be able to be enrolled in repeated classes. Like, I think I qualified
Daily?
for 3 or 4 different classes that met either once or a couple times a week for multiple
Okay.
weeks, and never was able to get into any of those classes because they weren't being offered. And so I don't know if it was based on complaints or what, but you don't actually, in Dublin when I was there, you don't have to be actively taking the course. You just have to be signed up for a wait list. And then they consider that toward your first step back credits.
Gotcha.
But that's how bad the issue is
Yeah.
that they give you credit without you even going to class, you know? So
So,
that was an issue, is lack of programming, because it
mhm.
makes people just feel like they're just being housed, which they were. Like, they just park in front of the TV,
Yep.
It's no good. There was rampant drug use in there. The drug use in there was shocking. Like, so I watched 3 people. 2 were obvious overdoses. I saw them being wheeled across the campus. One of them was bright yellow. Another woman overdosed out on the rec field, like on the prison yard. And my friend and I just watched as she had seizures for, I'd say, 20 to 30 minutes. She was, so one of the drugs in there, it's called K2. From what I understand, it's like a synthetic marijuana. I don't know, but one of the side effects of it is it can make people have seizures. And so that's called, the inmates call it flopping out. FLOPPING, because you're flopping around, right? So
Wow.
I watched an inmate flop out for like 20 to 30 minutes, and it was horrifying. The guards and a lieutenant were gathered around her, and they had a wheelchair, so they would try to like wait for her to stop seizing, and then they'd lift her up onto the wheelchair, push her a few feet, and then her body would go stiff and she'd flop out of the wheelchair again.
Oh
And
my
she must have just
gosh.
been like a horrible bag of bruises at the end. It was just super traumatic. I have 2 brothers
How
who,
how do they get so many drugs in the prison?
well, just
Because
real quick, like, I have 2 brothers who have overdosed and died from drugs. And
you
so, like,
do.
witnessing somebody overdosing was
Oh,
just a lot to process.
I can't even imagine you
Yeah,
having
it was rough. Yeah, so how do they get the drugs in? So
Yeah.
It was, I guess, common knowledge because the chaplain even mentioned it in a sermon, that they're coming in through the mail. And so I had gotten fairly close to one of the guards, and I asked this guard when nobody was around one day, I said, I don't understand why they don't stop the flow of drugs in here. Why don't they
Yeah.
stop the flow of drugs? Um, and this guard told me, uh, like, was shocked that I would just blatantly, like, straight out ask something like that. First of all, like, the guard's face was like, what? You know? And so the guard told me, it's because of Priya. And I said, I just looked at the guard, and the guard said, you don't know what I mean, do you? And I said, I know what PRIA is. It's the Prisoner Rape Elimination Act. So it gives
Oh,
inmates the ability to, in theory, report sexual abuse without being retaliated against, in theory. It's how it's supposed to work. So I looked at the guard, and the guard said, you still don't understand, though. And I said, no. And the guard said, they are scared that if they stop the drugs, that they'll be accused of PRIA violations. So basically, the guard was saying, if they stop the flow of drugs, it's going to make the inmates mad, and the inmates are going to accuse those guards of raping them. So that just shows like what a broken system it is in there.
very,
Like,
very.
I don't know how you would fix that. I don't know.
Mhm.
Like, I can't envision a way, even with all the reforms that were set to be made. I don't understand how something that deep rooted and widespread would be able to be changed. Like, that dynamic was extremely unhealthy. So anyway, yeah, so I would walk around my unit, especially like on a Friday, Saturday night, and you could just smell the drugs. Yeah, because K2, you smoke it. Well, you don't smoke it. People smoke it, right? And so, like, I would be walking to the little exercise room. We had like a 3 pieces of equipment and a mat in a back room, and I would
Mhm.
spend a lot of time in there working out and stuff. And so I would go, like, walk across my unit to go there, and I would smell like 2 to 3 cells on my way that I'm smelling people doing drugs, you know. And it was really frustrating because the women in there who didn't do drugs really didn't think it was cool to be locked in a box with people who were high. You know,
Mhm.
it's just really not cool. So I did drugs as a teenager, before I was a Christian, you know, till I was 19. I did a lot of drugs, which I think helped me get along in prison because I don't feel like I'm above people who were in there, you know.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah.
and it wasn't my first time being around people, you know, who've done some stuff. And I've done some stuff I probably should have gone to prison for as a teenager. And anyway, but in all my 36 at the time years it was that I had been clean, like, over those 36 years, I didn't see the amount of drugs that I saw as in 78 days of being in prison. And I was not offered the amount of drugs I was offered in those 78 days over the last 36 years.
Wow. So you talked about the global things. You've got water, the drugs,
The lack
and
of programming, the lack of medical
program.
care, the
The
lack of
lack of
medical care was
oh,
absolutely unconstitutional. There were inmates, so a lot of times inmates get uh, transferred from one prison to another. So they would get transferred into Dublin. They would have been on psych meds for, you know, a long time, years, sometimes decades. They would get to Dublin and they wouldn't get a re-up of their psych meds. and they couldn't bring them with them. So they just cold turkeyed off some hardcore psych meds, like anti-anxiety, antidepressants, and you're
Yeah,
supposed to
I think you're supposed to gradually
you
go
have
off
to
those.
titrate down off that stuff. You can't cold
Yeah.
turkey it. It really throws people into this bad headspace, like physiologically,
Mhm.
and that was just horrible to watch. Also, I had a couple friends in there who were dealing with they had PTSD really bad from some really bad experiences before they had gotten in there. One of them was very badly abused by her husband, physically, mentally, emotionally. Another one grew up in foster care, was sexually abused, and just all sorts of bad stuff. And so they were dealing with some pretty severe anxiety and depression. And they went, when you go see a doctor, it's not like you can just like go see the doctor. You have to get up early and get dressed in your khakis, and you have to show up outside in this line at 6 a.m. for medical, and rain or shine. And you can't get sick on a weekend because nobody's in medical on the weekends. Tuesdays are also like people usually don't show up. Anyway, so you have to go and then request, put in for whatever you want to be seen for, and then they supposedly sign you up to be seen. Then you get called like however long after. Well, so those two ladies that I mentioned, they had requested the psych meds, and it was about 3 weeks, I think, until it was even acknowledged that they needed a psych appointment, and they got their psych appointment, and then they were supposed to get their meds, but psych has to order them. And by the time I got out, like it was probably 3 weeks in of 78 days when they requested that. And by the time I got out, 2 months later, they still didn't have psych meds.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was really bad. The psychological services, and I don't blame this actually on the staff. It's more of it seemed to me that they were radically understaffed.
Do you think that's
Radically.
systemic across all prisons, or?
I don't know. I only know my experience. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
So I knew two ladies in there who were suicidal, and one of them, she had cancer, and stomach cancer, and they weren't following up with her. So she had beat the cancer, but she was having really bad symptoms. Her belly was distended. She was in a lot of pain. She was trying to get seen by medical. They weren't taking her seriously. They said she was making it up. All this stuff. Never getting tested. Didn't know if her cancer was back. Major anxiety, major anger, major depression, understandably. So she said, she went to psych. She said, I am suicidal. I have a razor blade. I was going to go slit my jugular in the cafeteria in front of everybody. So she handed them the blade, and they gave her a coloring book and colored pencils.
Are you kidding me?
No.
That's their therapy, is the coloring book?
That's what they did. Yeah. And there are signs all over the prison, like, see something, say something. Before the staff would see signs of trouble in your fellow inmates, if you see signs of depression, or somebody stating they want to self-harm, report it right away. You can do it anonymously, blah blah blah. Well, yeah, so they got a coloring book. Another lady was in there. She was in there for meth and crystal meth. Her dad was also an addict, and her dad, she showed up at my cell one night crying. She knocked on the door and she was crying, and so I let her in, and I said, "What's going on?" And she said, "My dad had a massive heart attack tonight, and he's on life support, and I have to call my sister right now and discuss taking him off." Oh my God. So I prayed I said, "Do you want me to pray for you?" and your dad. And she said, yeah. So I got to pray for her and her dad and just hug her while she cried for a little bit and waited for the phone. And anyway, so she told me a couple weeks later, she said, yeah, I went to psych. I was suicidal, after we took my dad off life support and he died. And they gave me a coloring book.
Oh my God.
And I'm like, this is the second person I've heard this from. Like the first one, when I heard it, I'm like, this is too outlandish to believe. Like, really? Did they not like offer you counseling too, or something other than just but no, people came to me twice about this.
Wow.
And so thankfully the lady whose dad passed away, she was able to go to the chaplain for counseling services. And within a couple of weeks, I saw her morale improve a lot. And that was really cool.
That is really cool.
So yeah, there were women in there who had been, because so they'll do mammograms, they'll do pap smears, they'll even do colonoscopies if you're of age. So I was offered all three of those things. I declined because I don't want prison health care because it's scary as crap. Anyway, two women were diagnosed with lumps in their breast and then had no follow-up testing. And there was a joke in there, like, if you don't hear back from medical, but you hear you're being transferred to Carswell, you have cancer. So Carswell is another, it's a medical facility, prison for women.
Oh.
And so that was like the ongoing joke among inmates is like, if you didn't hear back about your breast lumps, but you get a transfer to Carswell, you got cancer.
Wow.
Like it was just horrible. The dental care was horrible. A buddy of mine in there who I worked with at the chapel, she had a really bad tooth abscess that she would have to drain herself. There was no dentist on site. It was really bad. And you got 605 women with no dentist and a bunch of meth mouth, it was bad. It was really bad. That was bad. Complaints about things go unaddressed or they're severely delayed. So like I complained about the water. So first I did it, like you have to have a medical intake. They do a TB test, blah, blah, blah. So I had gotten it like my third day in and I knew already that I was sick, like from something. And so I said, I think so I met with the physician assistant and I said, I think it's the water. And he said, no, if it were the water, I'd have a line going out the door. And I said, well, I had cancer before and I've had pelvic radiation. So my guts are always like a little bit off, and this water, I know it's the water because my food is changing every day and my symptoms are not. And he's like, no, my guess is it's the food. Just experiment. It's a new diet.
Can you put your microphone closer to your mouth?
Me?
Sorry. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
That's
is that
okay.
better?
It's getting muffled once in a while. Okay.
Oh, sorry. Is that better?
Yes, that's better. Thank you.
So anyway, yeah. And then he did a vision test and he's like, wow, you really do you wear glasses? And I said, well, yes, like to drive at night or, I have prescription sunglasses. And he's like, wow, you can't see very well. I'm like, yeah, I know. So do you have glasses or what? And he's like, no. And he's like, why didn't you bring your glasses? And did they arrest you so quickly you couldn't grab them? And I said, no, I self-surrendered. And he said, well, where are your glasses? I said, they're in my car. Well, where's your car? I said, it's in Orange County in Southern California. And he's like, well, why didn't you bring your glasses? And I said, I was told I couldn't bring anything. I didn't think I could bring my glasses. So, and I said, so what do I do? And he said, you got to squint. So that was the solution.
You're getting muffled again, just FYI.
Sorry. So yeah, he told me I had to squint. So I squinted,
Wow.
which is extremely awkward when you can't see well, but you need to be aware of your surroundings and facial expressions.
Yeah.
To be able to gauge what's going on around you, and you don't want to look too hard at somebody,
Yeah.
That's not
Look
really
at Moxie.
so So anyway, I complained about the water after a couple weeks. That went, I didn't even get my complaint acknowledged for a couple weeks. I wanted to give it time. I didn't want to anger the person who was taking my complaint. So I waited a couple weeks. They said, oh, I never got it. Okay, well, my receipt on my email says you did. Okay,
Oh.
so I fill out another one. It gets rejected, but I wasn't told it was rejected until a week later when I said, have I heard back about my complaint about the water? No, nothing yet. And so then a few days later, I get called into that office, and the woman tells me, we got it. We got your complaint. It was read. And it was dated like 10 days prior, and it says, go see medical. And I had said in my complaint, I've already gone to medical about this, you know? And so then I had to file an escalated complaint. And so that one, like, I forget whatever the ID-9 or whatever the stupid form is called. And every time you do a complaint, you have to make copies of it. The copier was down for days, and like the staff didn't want to make a copy because they're not allowed to copy things for inmates. And it was just, I never did hear back anything about the water situation. We were only allowed to buy 3 liters of water from commissary per week, which is not enough to sustain life. So yeah, I'm really grateful that I think God
How much
showed
were
me
you
the
able to buy from the commissary? 3 liters
3 liters a week. Yeah,
a week.
yeah. So
Which
even
is
if I did have commissary money, which thankfully I did, I wasn't even allowed to buy water.
why limit water? It's just water.
Everything is limited.
Water? Oh, that's
Everything.
interesting.
I
Well,
Yeah.
drink that in a day.
you know what's interesting to me too, and by the way, we're over an hour, so I don't know if we're going to get to the rest of our show, but
Oh, sorry.
I sent,
I told you had to reel me in.
you know, I didn't want to stop you because you're telling your story, and
Saturday. We can
you
continue
know,
on Saturday.
yeah, like we can cover FCI, but I do want to ask you questions about that. But I sent you a card every day, and I heard that you were getting mail from other people, and even like I think Patriot AU joined the chat, by the way. I don't know if you're still in there, Patriot AU, but he got a group of a lot of folks together. They were together, and they all wrote to you, but none of my cards got to you. Why would my cards be held back?
Mine didn't get to her either.
Oh, okay. So is there other mail that you didn't get? Because I was really
Yeah. There
Okay.
are several people who said that they wrote and I never received them.
Okay.
I did get a lot of mail. My mail, from what I was told by a person who works there, was
Yeah.
that my mail was treated differently and that it was likely sitting in a box in SIS, which is Special Investigative Services or something. This staff member told me that that's why they think my mail was delayed. So when I first got there, I got letters every day for like a week and a half, and all of a sudden they stopped. And then I didn't get any mail from late October until mid-November. And then I just got mail dumps. I got like 15 one day, 18 another day. And they were all postmarked back way earlier in October and stuff, and early November. And then mid-November, my mail stopped again. And then I didn't get any mail until it was like a few days. I think it was December 5th, I got a mail dump of like 15. And then I think it was December 22nd, I got 43 pieces of mail dating all the way back to mid-November. And I thought, this is fantastic because now I know what I'm going to do on Christmas. I'm just going to sit in my cell on my bunk and read the love that people have for me. And it was, so for those of you who wrote to me, like, I don't know if I thanked everybody. I tried to. But there are people from my chat who wrote to me who I had never met and didn't even know they followed me. There's one lady in particular. I'm just going to say her name, Amy, who wrote the funniest letters, and I would just be on my bunk laughing.
That is
She's
so
super funny. So I got a lot of letters from a lot of people. It was amazing, like people I'd never met. You know, it was really beautiful and such a morale boost. So I want to encourage you guys, like, if you want to write to a J6 defendant, I don't contact me and I can help you find them.
Patriot Cat 12321 says, me, I'm Amy.
Yeah. Hey, Amy.
Oh.
I told her I was going to be on here.
Oh, okay. That's awesome. Well, I'm like, wait a minute. Do you know this Patriot Cat? Patriot Cat, I don't know who you are. I need to meet you too. Okay.
So yeah, my mail was all messed up. There was black mold and asbestos. There were complaints, whistleblower complaints, not just by inmates, but also by staff dating back.
Yeah, I have a video of a staff member complaining, but that happened while you were there?
Oh yeah, there was still like black mold in the showers and asbestos.
Gotcha.
And in November 2023, I just found an article today. So while I was in there, the Office of Special Counsel validated the whistleblower complaints, and I'm not really clear who was writing the article, but they said that nobody told the inmates or staff about their exposure or offered us medical surveillance, which they should do when we've been exposed. Anyway.
Interesting. You know, well, also, just so you know, because you might not know this, but you might have gotten some anonymous commissary. And I know Paul, like absolute, 1776.
Mm-hmm.
He reached out to ask, how do I give money? How do I give money?
Yeah, no, I could track whoever was giving me the money on my books. I could see it.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and it can't be anonymous.
Ah, that's good. Well, anyway, I just wanted you to know, like, people reached out to ask even about that. I know
that's really nice.
Yeah, I know you were able to talk to like Carrie on the phone.
Yeah, I called Carrie a lot because I memorized her phone number, and she was always such a bright spot. Like, I could always hear her smile through the phone, and she's a really good listener. And I just sometimes needed just to unload. I had a few people that I called fairly regularly. It was really cool. It was still part of the CARES Act at that time that was under Trump, so they called the phone minutes Trump minutes in there. It was funny.
They did.
So it used to be you would have to pay per minute on the phone, but while I was in there, we were limited. I forget how many minutes we got a month. It was a generous amount. I think it was like 500, 900 minutes.
That's good.
Yeah, it was really good. I only ran out 1 month. But anyway, so yeah, I was able to call people and just like feel grounded, talk to my grandnephews, talk to my family, Yeah. Anyway, another issue in there, I just want to finish up with these issues because I think it's important, not just the issues specific to me, which I don't even need to go into. I just want to be a voice for the people who were in there who weren't able to say all these things.
Right. That's what you said, why you're even doing this and speaking out.
Yeah.
So, yes.
So
let's hear it.
another thing was the commissary items were, I'd say 95% were extremely unhealthy. Just like sugar and salt. And the items that were not unhealthy, like they had a pack of almonds you could get, but it was $4.95 for a small pack of almonds. I was making 24.5 cents an hour.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So like, how do you buy a pack of almonds? You save up for months for a little pack of almonds. Like a lot of the women in there, they don't have somebody on the outside. They've lost their friends. They've lost their family. They are living on what they make at their jobs in there. And so if they want something from commissary, are they going to get a honey bun for $1.25, or are they going to save up for months for a small pack of almonds?
You know,
And
I
it's
have a
just really
question. Is that even legal? Because doesn't every state have minimum wage laws? It shouldn't matter if you're in prison working
no, it's
versus
Not when it comes to prison, no.
what's
not
that?
when you're in prison.
Really?
Right.
Why though?
Right. Because they
They
can, I
legally have
guess.
to pay you for your work.
They legally have to pay you for your work, but aren't there minimum wage laws?
Not in prison.
But
I make 24.5 cents an hour scrubbing toilets and mopping floors.
how is that legal? Wow. Anyway, continue. Sorry to interrupt.
No, that's okay. There are no tables in there, so you can't. There's no. Well, that's not entirely true. So, in the common area, so every unit has a common area. It's downstairs. So basically the units are like a horseshoe. So there's a bottom layer and a top layer with cells all around, right? And then on the floor, there are 6 TVs mounted to the ceiling, and then a low like divider wall ceiling thing. And then there are some tables, but the noise level in there, imagine 90 females inside a concrete box, how loud that gets,
Oh, I
right?
bet. I bet
So
it's
like
super loud.
there's nowhere that you're allowed to go to sit quietly to read or write. There's no table in the cell. I could stand up next to my locker and use my locker as a table when I stood. But there were tables out on the prison yard where I would go to write. But and there was a library, but the library, I think they let 10 women in at a time. So you've got 600 women going for 10 slots in a library. I think there were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 chairs in there. So that was not ideal, but there were empty classrooms all around, but they wouldn't let you in the empty classrooms to sit and read and write, like, because they didn't have a supervisor for you. So that was a frustration that I think everybody felt. Also, there was another thing that they weren't supposed to do that they were doing, and I looked it up in my not in my handbook. It was somewhere online. I found it. You can't go online there. You have like a locked system, like a locked part of the internet you can go onto. So like you
Oh.
can look up rules and regulations, things like that.
Oh,
And they
like you're inside a intranet instead of
Yes, it's an intranet. Exactly. Thank you.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So they were doing global punishments for individuals' behaviors. So, for example, there would be people doing drugs and selling drugs and fighting and on the prison yard, and they ended up shutting down the prison yard at night. It was never open after dinner anymore. Not because of all of us, because of few people. They're not supposed to globally punish people. Also, the SHU, the special housing unit, so solitary confinement, was its own building, and that building was situated right over a fence from the prison track, so out on the rec yard, right? And the rec yard was filled with rocks, and so women would have their girlfriends or their good friends or whatever be placed into the SHU, and then they would pick up rocks and start throwing rocks and yelling to their friends who were in the SHU. And whenever that happened, they locked down the whole prison yard. They brought us all back inside and shut it down for the rest of the day based on one person throwing rocks at the SHU. They're not supposed to do global punishment for individuals' behavior.
But they were doing that.
But they were all the time. Like, I can't even count how many times the yard got shut down, and it was my only place that I could write, and like the only place I felt somewhat free, you know, and it was the quietest place,
Yeah.
you know.
Wow.
So
Did you
anyway,
get some quiet alone time? I actually, while you answer, I'm not going to be rude, but I'll be right back.
okay. Did I get quiet alone time? The first time I noticed that I was actually alone was when I had my second cellmate. So it was 35, it was after 37 days in. I hadn't been alone for a second. And
Okay.
like I live alone. So like not being alone was really an adjustment. Um and sharing an 8x12 box with somebody who you don't get along with very well because you differ on every important thing in life was very challenging. But I remember the first time my second cellmate went to work and I was in my cell alone, and I was like, and it was still loud because I mean, right outside there is, you know, the 90 women in the concrete box. So it was still loud, but I was alone. And I went to the sink and I looked at myself in the mirror and I'm like, I'm alone. This is amazing. This is amazing. Oh, it felt so good.
I feel like that every day after work, being alone is amazing.
So yeah, so those were the issues that affected everybody. There was issues specific to me that I don't feel like they matter because I'm done with that chapter. I've reported them to anybody who might be able to do something about them who would listen. Uh, you know, like attorneys and things like that. So I don't know. We'll see. But anyway, yeah, I just really wanted to be a voice for the women I really grew to adore, and to humanize them, and to hopefully give people a better understanding that that it's not. I had somebody in comments section on a channel in here, and I had posted what I posted about my first cellmate, about how she was friends with her mom, and stuff like that. And I think it got a lot of people to really take maybe a couple minutes to think a little more deeply than I always did about inmates, just writing them off as they deserve it. And I saw a comment saying, you know, basically, F that, they're rapists and murderers and child molesters. And I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Do you think that's why people are in there? Like the majority of people I was in there with are in there for drug crimes.
Right. Right.
But
I
yeah,
mean,
there were definitely child molesters in there. I'd like hardcore freaking child molesters who need to not be in society again, like gnarly
right, but
crimes.
everybody in there is human, and many of them, probably a good huge percentage of them, probably just made a mistake.
Yes, exactly.
Or look at you. You did nothing. You did nothing. You
Yeah.
walked around, and that's all you did.
Another thing, just really sorry, I know we're way over, but just I want to briefly mention, like, I never understood what a trial tax was before. I didn't understand that when people are charged with crimes, what often happens, and what I expected to happen was that I would go in there and I would hear everybody saying, like, I don't belong here, I didn't do it, you know? And I did not hear that even once. What I heard was, I did this, this, and this. But I was charged with these other 4 things too. And I didn't do those things. But if I went to trial, they were going to get me on the 4 things I did plus 4 things I didn't do. So essentially, people are forced into taking not forced, but manipulated, coerced into
Coerced.
taking plea deals.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah,
and
they
so I
are.
saw that just over and over again.
Well,
And
not
it
only
was
that, they're
really,
pressured. They're pressured into it. A lot of the J6 people are pressured into it because they're being warned that if you don't do this, you're going to get like 3 years like this other guy. So you better plea and then just get a couple months and you'll be on your way.
yeah, I
Uh,
don't want to specifically talk about J6, but this is not just J6. This is like everybody I talked to in there was like,
yeah.
I was radically overcharged, and the couple people that said, look, these charges are off the charts horrible. I can prove I didn't do this. And one of those women is now doing life because she went to trial. She didn't take the plea and she lost at trial. And
Wow.
that's what's called a trial tax. And
And
it's a
she,
thing. Like, look it up online. It's a thing.
wow. I have
It's
a
crazy.
question because the prison you went to is known as the Rape Club.
Yeah.
And the definitely we'll probably do a part 2 to talk more about that in the history and all that because but I have a question. I'm wondering how could that have happened in a women's prison because aren't most of or shouldn't most of the staff be women?
I would say that more than half of the guards there
Uh-huh.
were men.
More than half
So
are men.
yeah, so the guards who would have, like all day shift and then overnight shift in our units, like in our house, basically, they were the ones who come around, at midnight and shine the flashlight, into your room because they have to make sure you're alive. So like you have to like move or something, and if you don't move, they bang on the cell door, some of them, to get you to move to make sure you're alive. Anyway, so they like those would be men. They came around at midnight and 4 a.m. every
Okay.
night. I got used to that quicker than I thought, but yeah, you would think that they would have more female staff. Um,
Or only female staff.
yeah, I think they have a really hard time recruiting anyone, though, from what I've heard. Like uh, from
Interesting.
Tess Korth, the whistleblower who worked at Dublin for 25 years,
Mhm.
she was saying what a difficult time they have recruiting and how understaffed they are. So
Right.
yeah, it's really unfortunate, and all of the guards and staff who have either been found guilty or pled guilty to
Mhm.
sexually abusing inmates have all been men. Um, I was treated the worst by a female.
Really?
So it's not to say that just because it's a female, it's going to be better. I was treated absolutely inhumanely by a female lieutenant.
I guess I was thinking more on the sexual abuse that was going on in there. And I know
Mm,
since we've been like putting out there that it was known as the rape club and it's
yeah,
known for that controversy for the sexual assaults. I think a
yeah.
lot of people might want to know the answer to this. I know, but I want to ask you so people know. Were you ever sexually assaulted in there?
No, thankfully not. And most of the inmates were not. It wasn't like everybody was getting raped all the time. You know,
Right.
a lot of it was inmates would have relationships with you know
Hmm.
staff or guards or whatever. But that is still a radical abuse of power. It's illegal.
Absolutely.
It's still like
Well,
I
and some of them,
consider it rape.
even if there was relationships, they were sort of I know I saw an interview of one girl who was just manipulated into
Absolutely,
going
yeah,
into that relationship, like almost like when there's a scammer going into your life just to try to get your money. They kind of
yeah.
do the same thing with the sexual assault. So,
Yeah, and if you consider it like these staff and guards, they have absolute power. over you. They
Yeah.
control your movement. They control whether you're locked down into your cell or not. They control when you can, where you can go, when you can go there, what you eat, when you sleep, what you're allowed to do, what you're not allowed to do. They can write you up for things, get you thrown into the shoe, into solitary. They have absolute power over your life in there. You don't have power in there.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the scary thing about that. I had to ask you because I think people might be wondering.
Yeah, thank
And
you. Thank you.
another thing that I wondered, and I think I already asked you this, but I think other people might be wondering the same thing with all the shenanigans going on in the world with the prisons, especially in the news, with women being raped by other inmates because men are claiming to be women. Were there any transgenders in your prison while you were there?
So that's that's kind of hard to answer. So there
Oh,
were several women in my unit who had beards and mustaches, like full on beard and mustache, but
really?
born female, right? Born female, but full beard and mustache or shaved every day. I gave one inmate a hug goodbye, and I got like razor burn from her chin. Like, it's crazy. Anyway, so there's a lot of
Wait a minute. What women would have full beard and mustache that are born female?
Women
if
who
they're
have
if they're
the beard.
transitioning.
Oh, they're transitioning to be men?
Yes.
Oh, so not, but did you have any men that were
I
transitioning?
I believe I know of 3, I would say for sure. But I mean, it's not like you walk up and go, "Hey, were you born with a penis?" You know? But men and women are built differently, and there were definitely a few inmates who looked like they had male bodies. But I'm not sure. Whenever that topic came up, I tried to steer away from it in there. Um, there was one inmate who was trying to get me on board with doing a complaint about it, and I'm like, "Look, this isn't my hill to die on. Like, I'm not experiencing anything bad with any inmate with facial hair, and the inmates who were built like men, like that wasn't my thing. Like that, I didn't want to get involved with that because I didn't feel it was in my wheelhouse.
Yeah. I probably would die on that hill if it were me.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. And like I think about it, and like if people born women want to identify as male, then why aren't they in a male prison if we're honoring how they're identifying? Right?
Right, but yet the men are in the women's prison.
I would bet on it with at least 3, but I can't prove it, and I didn't confirm it, and I didn't want to confirm it, and they
No.
weren't in the unit anyway.
I wouldn't ask that. Yeah, I wouldn't even ask that. But
no, I didn't see any visible peni in there.
well, we're definitely going to have a follow-up show, and I don't know if we should do it this
Are we gonna
Saturday.
leave it on the no visible peni?
No, no, but I do want to give a very quick overview so people understand this prison you are in. So, about 5 years ago or so, there were several cases of women claiming to be raped. And there were 8 men who were tried that worked at the prison that actually went to trial for it, and 7 of them were convicted. So even though,
And the next one is coming up. His trial's coming up in a couple months, I believe.
Okay.
It's not that he was exonerated, it's that he hasn't gone to trial yet.
Yep. And then so this happened within the last couple of years, these convictions. And what happened last March is all the news was breaking news that FCI Dublin, this happened, gosh, you got out in the right time. FCI Dublin was being raided by the FBI, and they were being investigated based off of complaints. And for the first time ever, there was a special master that was assigned to the prison to oversee changes that needed to be made. And like they found mold in there too. So it wasn't just like how people were treated, it was the inhumane conditions and all of that. So this was breaking news that so first in March, there was a raid. In April, they announced there was a special master. And just within a few days of that, the prison announced it was closing. I just think the timing of that, as soon as a special master was assigned, they just suddenly shut down the prison very quickly. What did the judge call it, Danean? It was like Swiss cheese or something. It was so bad.
Yeah. So the judge who's overseeing a class action lawsuit by inmates who face rape and retaliation, she's overseeing some of the cases of the guards, who went to prison, and the chaplain and the what do you call him? The warden. Anyway, so yeah, March 15th, she ordered a special master, and then she appointed special master Wendy Sill on April 5th, and then before the special master could do any meaningful oversight, long-term meaningful oversight, and try to fix the problems and weed out the corruption, the Bureau of Prison Director, Colette Peters, ordered the closure without telling the judge. She buried it in a court document.
And it was like a week later.
It was 10 days later. It was April 15th.
Oh, it was a week and a half later then. I'm pretty close. So I definitely want to cover this stuff because I have video where I think it was that Claudette, whoever was over the BOP, she was talking about whether all of the prisoners and everybody that went through what they went through with the rapes and sexual assault should deserve an apology. We've got the prison guard video of this gal who was a whistleblower where she witnessed a lot of this stuff. We have victims that we want to highlight. We definitely want to cover this prison, but not tonight because look what time it is.
Yeah, so let me tell you the way to get the best news about FCI Dublin. If you want to go back, there's a reporter that I was told by the inmates I could trust. They reached out to her. Her name's Lisa Fernandez, and she's at KTVU. So the website is KTVU, like Karma Television University. Okay, ktvu.com. She's also on Twitter. She's at LJ Fernandez, Fernandez.
Hang on, because I'm going to pull her up. So I'm going to ask you again so that we can show folks. Let me just present really quick. I want to pull up. Oopsie, I have it wrong here. There we go. All right. So what is her Twitter handle?
LJ Fernandez, Fernandez.
Okay. Lisa? Is it Lisa Fernandez?
Yep.
Okay. Is this the right person then I got up on the screen?
I am just seeing things flashing. I believe so. Yeah, I think so. Yep. Let me grab my glasses.
Rich turned into a journo at KTV.
Yep, that's her.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I have a lot of KTVU articles that I can share, and we'll definitely follow Lisa. I'll just follow her right now.
There's some really left-wing content from her.
You know, I read some of that. So she's not conservative, just as a
Not
head.
at all, but she is an amazing reporter on Dublin. She has been a godsend to these ladies. I
Yeah.
really appreciate and respect her so much.
Yeah. So the last three agenda items we had, which was FCI Dublin history, FCI Dublin closure. We'll cover those maybe on Saturday if you're available, Moxie. And then, but what we did have is what's next for Danean. So Danean, what's next for you?
I don't know. We'll have to figure that out as we go. I'm just trying to
Okay.
rebuild my life. I've, had a lot of changes. I shut down a 24-year business. I've been trying to rebuild that. I've
Mhm.
been searching for employment. I've, rebuilding relationships, starting new relationships, finding a new church. So lots of changes in my life. I still covet your prayers. Um, I think I've done most of the mental and emotional processing of being in prison. It was really hard. I'm on probation still, so I'm not allowed to have contact with people with felonies. And so that means I can't be in contact with any of the people I grew to absolutely respect and
Mhm.
adore from prison. So
Yeah.
all those people have been cut out of my life until I'm off of probation. I don't know when that'll be. Sort of a long
And that's
story I
why
can't go into.
we intentionally didn't ask some questions just
Yeah.
to respect the fact that you are. So,
Yeah. So yeah, that's been pretty rough. That was maybe the hardest thing to process, is just that these people I grew to adore just got like thrown into my life and then ripped out of my life.
mhm.
Um, that was hard because I love and care about people deeply. That's,
You mean the friends that you made in
yeah,
prison?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
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 So I don't know, someday, but I'm gonna just remain compliant with my probation conditions and just rebuild my life and know that this is just a chapter. It's not my whole book. uh, People want me to write a book. I don't know, maybe that'll happen someday. uh,
That's actually not a bad idea. When is your probation over again?
I can't go into it.
Oh, okay. That's
Yeah,
fine. I'm
yeah.
sorry.
No, that's
I
okay.
knew there were some questions like I couldn't ask, but uh
Yeah,
but
no problem.
okay. Sounds good. So I do want to ask you though, where can people find you online?
Oh, uh can you
I
help
do
me
know,
with
do you
this?
know what? I have
Okay,
a
so
banner
I'm
ready.
on Twitter X, Danean here too. So DANEANHERE 2 on Twitter. Oh,
Yeah.
you have my stuff.
No, I
Good for them.
do.
Look at you.
I had it ready just in case you didn't remember.
Cool, thank you. So yeah, I guess I'm at Danean here too on Twitter and Telegram, and Truth Social. I'm just at Danean here.
Yeah. And Danean does have a Telegram channel. It's very encouraging. She puts a lot of the FCI Dublin stuff on there, but also prayers. Have you been posting your flower? How are your flowers doing? Because you have gorgeous flowers.
Oh, they're doing amazing. This is the time of year for them. I'll have to post a couple photos maybe this weekend.
Yes, please.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's. I think you should totally do it. I'll
Okay.
repost it too. So, uh,
Okay. Cool.
we had a lot of friends join, and I didn't want to interrupt you while you were talking, but Carrie was talking about how much she enjoyed the phone calls. Patriot AU uh, was, happy to send those letters, and he joined in too.
Cool.
Your friend,
All
your
right.
friend Amy. I know we've got like Inspector and all the usuals, like Rocker Lady, who is Sammy, and we've got Magnolia. You're gonna have to help me here, Moxie. Who else we got?
Thank you
V.
for writing, Magnolia.
Yeah, Magnolia, Herbie, of course. In God We Trust, which is who's it?
Natalie.
Natalie. Sorry. I'm sorry, guys. When you have two names, I can't remember. Um, who else did we have, Moxie, that I know I missed? Mike, Deplorable Mike, and Boats in a River, which is Craig. So lots of good friends joining us, and we appreciate you all being here. Daneen, do you have any closing thoughts or anything else you wanted to add, or make sure you get out there for those women's voices?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, so thank you to everybody who came tonight. Thank you guys ladies for having me on. I told you I'd need guardrails, and like it's a minute and 40 or an hour 45. Sorry about that. I'm trying to reel myself in. I'll
You
get
know, I
better.
didn't want to reel you in, and we wanted to hear about your experience.
Yeah, so I would say just pray for people who are incarcerated. There's a verse, I think it's Hebrews 13:3.
Yes,
Remember those who are in prison as if you were in chains with them. So I just
yeah,
encourage you to try to see prisoners as people, not as their crime. Um, life can turn on a dime.
it's so
Uh,
true.
Forever for any of us, you know.
Mhm.
And I wanted to ask you guys to pray for January 6th people. They're still being arrested. There are new arrests every week. They haven't slowed down. They've sped up this year.
Well, you know
Um,
what? I'm expecting that because there's an election coming up.
yeah, right. Yeah, and there are a lot of people being sentenced every week. A lot of people deciding whether to take a plea deal or go to trial every week.
Yeah.
A lot of
Mhm.
people whose lives are being destroyed every week. We just had another suicide of a January 6th defendant last
Oh, I
week.
didn't know that. Really? Who
Yeah,
was that?
yeah. David Hommel, Homol.
Oh my gosh, I did not know
So
that.
yeah, so I believe that's a fifth confirmed. So yeah, I just want to encourage you guys to pray for the people who are going to trial. We've got some people who are representing themselves in the courts. There's a good man named William Pope, and he's a pro se defendant. He's defending himself. He's scheduled to go to court to trial in July. So please pray for Will. Yeah, that's the man on the left is the one who recently committed suicide.
Yeah,
So
definitely we'll be praying.
yeah, so pray for the defendants, pray for those going to court. Pray for Will. His case is really important.
Mhm.
Just just offer an encouraging word. Be kind to people because you don't know what people are going through. Try to give people extra grace.
Yeah.
Because this is a hard time that everybody's going through. Try to give yourself extra grace when you make mistakes or like you have a bad day or you do a giant
Can I
fail.
tell a little anecdote about that, which
Yeah,
might set in for people? All
yeah,
right. So many years ago, I worked at a bank, and my sister worked with me. We were both bank tellers. This was long before I had like a career, but we worked at a bank, and my sister is very sensitive. And this guy came in and happened to go to her window, and he was so rude to her. Um, he wanted, I think, more money than was in his account, and she can't legally like give him
yeah,
that or something. I don't remember what it was, but he was so mad at her, and he ripped her and talked personal, like, used really bad language, and just screamed at her, and then left the bank, and she was bawling. She was so upset. And the next day or a couple days later, she got flowers delivered to her with an apology. Apparently, this guy that came into the bank, he was coming in on the same day that he found out that, I believe it was his sister, he found out she died, and they had found her washed up in the river. So you do not know what people are going through. Don't judge people. Send it to God. Give them blessings. This is why I love your enemy. You never know what's going on with somebody. So I just I wanted to drive that home because we make assumptions about prisoners, about people who are rude to us, all of that kind of stuff. Anyway.
Yep.
So go ahead and continue with your closing thoughts.
Nope, that's all I got.
Okay. I think that's a great way to end it. Send prayers because you don't know what people are going through.
Yeah, and just be kind, smile at people.
Be kind.
Yep. Give them a compliment.
Even if
compliment
they're not,
can turn a day around.
Yeah, look what you did to that guard.
Yeah, right. Just by saying happy Halloween, and nobody else did, and
that's all it took was a happy Halloween. So
yeah.
Definitely lots of lessons it sounds like you learned. And you did say it changed your life. Can I just ask quick, how did it change your life?
It made me appreciate things when they were ripped away.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
It made me know that I am way stronger than I thought I was.
Oh, that's awesome.
So I got nervous about something the other day. I was doing an interview, a job interview, and I'm like, okay, get over yourself. You just went to federal prison. If you can go to federal prison and be okay, you can do a stupid job interview. Come on, get over it. So that has been really helpful. I think seeing how many people do love me and support me and genuinely care with no expectation of return has been really amazing for me. I think reading, so when you're sentenced, your friends and family, you can ask them to write a letter to the judge, talking about your character, basically a character letter. And reading those was just mind-blowing. It was like going to my own funeral and being eulogized and reading eulogies, because people were just saying how they thought of me, and I didn't know that's how they saw me, and that's been really beautiful.
Oh, that's incredible. Yeah,
that was really morale boost when I needed it, and I think just knowing that God can give me peace in the craziest of circumstances, opening my eyes in a federal prison and not being the least bit scared. I was never scared in there for a minute.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and that was totally gone. So,
I can totally see how that would be life-changing. Lots of lessons learned there. And I feel like we're learning them through you,
Thank you. I hope so. I hope to just, use this to help people.
Absolutely. I think it will help people. And I think it will be encouraging as some of these women are released, if they can see, that there are people out there talking about this.
Yeah.
That are putting their voice out there.
Yeah.
I think that will be encouraging too for them.
Yeah.
So, well, Moxie, do you have any closing thoughts?
Thank you so much, Danean, for picking us to do your first interview.
You're welcome.
Oh, yes, that is an awesome, awesome thing. We appreciate and love you, Danean, so much.
Yeah, I love you ladies too. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thanks.
Bye.
Have a good night, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
I can see clearly now, the rain is gone. I can see all obstacles in my gonna be a bright